Now, what a year, 2020. It's been a tsunami of turbulence. We've got the climate change, we've got the bushfires in Australia, we've got floods in this country, we've got political unrest. It seems like wherever you look, whether it's in the home or with the self or in the wider community, turbulence is everywhere. So how can we overcome this? Well, today we have a very wonderful speaker, Sister Jayanti. Sister Jayanti is the European Director of the Brahma Kumaris, and she's been a student and practitioner for over 50 years. And she's a wonderful ambassador of how to remain calm when there's upheaval in one's life or in the wider sector. So today, Sister Jayanti is going to share some insight and some solutions, how we can all find that stability that she has. So Sister Jayanti, I'd like to welcome you onto stage.
Good evening and a greeting of peace. Om Shanti. It does feel as if the year has kicked off in a very dramatic way. Does it feel like that? And so the question, how do I maintain my own inner state of stability? How many of you have been surfing ever? If you lived in Australia, you would have. But living in Leicester or in the Midlands, not so easy to go surfing. And I've never been surfing, but I've seen it often enough. And the tide comes in and it goes out, and it comes in and goes out. And you have to know the right moment to be able to go surfing. You have to catch the moment. And what's happening now is learning to catch the moment. But the moment is, you don't know when it's going to come, but it comes. And then I have to be able to stay up above, on top of it, and not allow it to make me go under. And that happens through my own inner state of consciousness. When we started talking about climate change and consciousness way back in 2009 in Copenhagen, people were surprised. What has this got to do with the other? And then we'd explain that, well, it's materialistic consciousness, it's consumer consciousness that is actually the cause of the carbon emissions and the heating up of the atmosphere and so on, because that's what's led to all our human actions that have created the situation. And within a minute, people would understand. And today, people themselves are talking about it. Unless we have a change of mindset, unless we have a change of heart, we are not going to be able to reverse anything. It's not government laws that can make us implement all this. But anyway, governments are too scared. They don't think that they're going to win the next election if they actually impose limits to carbon emissions. And so I don't see many governments in the world actually taking that step. And so all of us as individuals who are interested, we have to decide what it is we want to do. And the most important thing is learning a very simple technique. And that is, instead of just being focused out there all the time, try something else. Try going inside. And we're not used to this practice because all our attention is always out there. When was the last time you had a dialogue with yourself? Can you remember? Some of you can, those who are on the path of prayer and reflection, but most people, everything is just a reaction to whatever is going on outside. There's nothing that's happening that's being created on an inner level, inside. And so my thoughts are actually all involuntary. It's a repeat of what it is I've thought before. It's simply a reaction of that on an automatic level. Some of you may have read works by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Anyone come across that name? Okay. He started off as a biologist and geneticist and ended up being a philosopher, and he continues with his biological experiments. But what he discovered was that essentially, I'm not going to give you an hour lecture on what he talks about. He wrote this book, Biology of Belief, maybe 10, 12 years ago. So it's not new, it's been around a while. But in that, he very clearly demonstrates how through his research and his experimentation, what he found was that whatever is said to be genetic and is said to be absolutely fixed, it's in your genes, so that's what's going to be expressed. No, not true. Yes, it may be in your genes, but then how you respond to situations in life will determine whether those genes are either expressed or suppressed. And why I share this is because from further research, what he also understood was that whatever you've learned up through to the age of 7 maybe, some would say even 4, but he says 7. So whatever it is you've learned in terms of your behavior and your responses to people until the age of 7 is what has created a pattern within you. And your responses to situations are on automatic pilot. You see an individual and it reminds you of your bad relationship with your sister or your brother or your father or your mother, and you respond to them in that way. It's a stranger, but something about them reminds you. And so what's coming out is automatic, a reaction. And so you don't give that individual a chance. And especially if there's been recent encounters in which those images and imprints have been fitted in, then of course it's that reaction that comes out again. Am I still in that state where I'm just reacting all the time? Or can I change the situation and actually create a response, a new response to situations that I'm facing all the time? Yes, it's possible. And the beautiful thing about modern science is that they confirm that the brain is elastic, which means that it can change, it can adjust, you can create new pathways within the brain. And so just simply because I've been reacting the whole of my life, whether I'm 20 years old or 50 years old, doesn't matter. But we think that because this has been my reaction all the time up until now, it's going to be the same reaction now. It doesn't have to be that. If I can step in and break the circuit in here, how do I do that? A shift of consciousness in which I come to understand that I am the inner being. A shift from the identity that I've been used to, the identity connected with this physical form, to a different reality, and it's real, it's not imagination. My thoughts, my consciousness, my feelings, my memory, all of this is very real, but it's not physical. And it's not even part of the brain. There's something that's triggering the brain. And yes, there are parts of the brain connected with all of this, but the trigger isn't in the brain. Just for a moment, consider how thoughts are not physical. You've thought always that it's the brain that's generating thought. But in fact, I can sit here and my thoughts can be in New York or in Bombay. No time at all. Split moment. Not even a second. I can be there, I can be there. I can go back in time. Where was I yesterday? Where was I 10 years ago? Where was I last Republic Day? Where will I be next year? So I can go back and forth in time. I can go back and forth in space. The brain can't. The brain is sitting here. It's not moving. It hasn't gone anywhere. But my consciousness can move. My consciousness is not my brain. The brain is not I. I am that inner spiritual entity that we're exploring tonight. Because being able to manage outside circumstances doesn't depend on your resources in terms of your intelligence or your money or your property or your degree. Doesn't depend on any of those things. How many people do you know who are highly intelligent, and yet when it comes to simple things like relationships, they get lost? Or when it comes to day-to-day matters and just making logical steps and commonsensical things, they flounder. And so there's a different energy. And so yes, intelligence is important, money is important, position is important, work is important, all of those things are important. But more important than all of these things is to understand what's going on inside myself. Who am I? People would say that this is an eternal question, and it's been pondered over for thousands of years. True. But now it's very beautiful to see how the insights of science in terms of consciousness actually validate the things of ancient spirituality and mysticism. They actually come together in a very beautiful way. And so understanding myself and knowing that even if until now I've been reacting in a specific way and not managing to deal with all the turbulent tides, this has been my past track record, but that's okay. If today I choose, if today I want to make things different, I can do that. But I need to understand myself. You know what they say about human personality? They say it's like an iceberg. You see 1/10, a 9/10 is below the surface. And that's generally what they'd say. I'd probably say that you're seeing not just 1/10, you're seeing just 1%, and the 99% is below the surface. We get to know ourselves only when we're very focused on that journey of the discovery of what's going on inside. And the more I know myself, the more I can enhance the things that I'd like to enhance and shift the things that I know I would like to shift. Or maybe at this moment I don't even know. But going on that journey within, I make both discoveries. I discover the beauty and the goodness of the spirit, but I also discover, gradually, the weaknesses and the defects, both. And I think that that sequence is the right way to go about it. Because if I'm looking at my weaknesses and defects first, it can make me feel rather helpless and hopeless. I think, how can I change all of this? It's going to be very difficult. But if I start another journey, and that is understanding the goodness and the beauty that lies within, and that applies to every single human being, not just the people here, but every human being has goodness and beauty within them. And through the journey inwards, they're able to discover that. And discovering that gives you hope, it fills you with courage, you're looking at the future from a very positive standpoint, and you're able to strengthen those qualities. And then, yes, definitely, you need to do the other bit. You need to look at the other side and see what are the weaknesses that are holding me back. What are the aspects of the self that I'm not very comfortable with, and I really would like to change? I can see both those things. But now I have the capacity and the power to be able to change the negative stuff. Just looking at it on its own, would have been difficult. But looking at it now from this perspective, it becomes that much easier. And of course, here in this audience, I feel comfortable to mention another ingredient. Sometimes in London, the audience is a little bit cold, and so you hesitate to bring in the G word, God. There seems to be an allergy to that word. But somehow here I feel more comfortable, and I can bring in the subject of God. Going on an inner journey comes me to that awareness where I can start experiencing the presence of God, which I couldn't before. Think about a radio receiver, and you're tuning it to the right frequency, and when you've got it tuned, you'll be able to catch the message that's coming to you from the transmitter. If your receiver set isn't tuned to the right frequency, the transmitter is sending a message, but I'm not catching it. So here's a person next to me, they're catching it, and here am I, and I'm not catching it. The transmitter is the same. The message that's coming is available for all. And so in turbulent times, when we want to take help from above, some people will say, well, I was praying, but nothing happened. But what was the quality of prayer? Was it a genuine communication from the heart? Or was it simply a recitation of words, a memorized thing that I was repeating? And as one part of my mind was repeating those words, another part of my mind was thinking about something else. They say that the mind works on 21 channels. You can be thinking about 21 different topics and one thing, another thing. This is how we do multitasking. If we didn't have this capacity for the brain to work on many channels, nobody would be able to do multitasking, but many of you do that. And this is because the mind is working on all those different channels. And if I want to actually experience the connection with the divine, feel the presence of the divine, then I need to switch off 20 of those channels and allow only one channel to function and focus the energy of that one channel, tune it to that one. And when I do this, then in that awareness, I can catch the signal that's coming to me, and I'll have help that I need. It's not just making my mind go blank, but it's actually a very conscious exercise in connecting. Just simply say, I've got to be silent, I've got to be still, and the mind becomes quiet and still. You could be picking up messages from here and there and everywhere. You're picking up other people's thoughts, other people's vibrations. All of this is going on. But you say, I want to put a full stop to all of that. I want to make that connection just with one. And I want to see what is the signal that's coming to me now. Then I'll be able to make the right decision. Then I'll know what to do, where to go, how to do it. And it might not be a physical thing of where to go and what to do, but it'll be a signal maybe. Just stay where you are, but let there be a lot of light. Take all the light and share that light. Maybe the signal will be that what's needed here is power. And it's not external power, but it's spiritual power. Connect and you'll feel that spiritual power reach you. Maybe the message will be, the only thing that's going to work is love. Take that love and share that love. So keeping my mind focused is what I do, and then help comes from above, and that power is then able to help me deal with the situation, whatever it may be. Looking through to 2020, it's an exciting time. And it's exciting because there are two different energies that work very, very powerfully. But because there are two opposing forces at work, it's also a turbulent time. And what I'm talking about is the fact that the negative forces get stronger and stronger. Agree? Who agrees? Unfortunately, I think that's true. The negativity of the world gets stronger and stronger. The anger of the world, the injustices of the world, all of these become more and more blatant. People telling lies and still continuing to hold on to seats of power. If you're witnessing that, it's a strange time in which we live. So the negative energies are getting stronger. But on the other side, there's a ray of hope that's coming in. And I see gatherings like this gathering all over the world, but not over just all over the world, even all over the UK, in interesting places, places that normally you wouldn't associate with wanting to learn about meditation or well-being. I'm seeing interest come from those quarters. And so parts of the establishment where they've been very, very orthodox now are interested in the subject of meditation and how can meditation help us. Me personally, but can meditation help my community, the group of people that I live with, I work with? I'm seeing the word meditation come into our vocabulary. 50 years ago, when I started to teach meditation in London, most people didn't know the word. And gradually, it's now become a fashionable word. Not is it that people know about it, but it's actually become quite fashionable. The sound, is it reaching you at the back? Can you hear me? Yes? No? Okay. Seem to be changing. It's okay. So I'm aware that, yeah, now it's proper. So I'm aware that there's an energy of ascent, a light that's entering the world. People interested not just in vegetarian diet, but even veganism. Now that's another step further to take in terms of change of diet and lifestyle and everything. But there's a big wave that's moving in that direction. I'm seeing people thinking about holistic health. Again, a big change. A lot of people aware that it's not just tablets and pills that are going to make me well, but I have a responsibility to myself to keep myself well through the choices that I make in terms of my lifestyle, my diet, and so on and so on. So many different factors that I see are bringing about change. And I can choose at this moment, in this very exciting period of time, do I just want to sit back and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it? And in that case, the energy that's going down is going to carry me down with itself. It's a powerful force. But if I understand that I have a choice, and I make a conscious choice to step away from the negative forces, not physically, I'm not running away anywhere, I'm still living in my own home, doing my own job, doing all the things I need to do, not leaving my responsibilities, fulfilling all of those. But I'm now changed what's going on in here. And I'm making sure that I look at things from a different perspective. I look at things from a spiritual angle. I ask myself the question, what are the values that are important here that I need to be looking at? Again, just like that first question. When was the last time I spoke to myself, had a dialogue with myself? Same question. What are the core values of my own life? What is it that I hold so important that I would say it's a basic fundamental principle that I'm not going to move away from? There can be 1,000 ideas, there can be different things, there can be different moods, different fancies. But at the core of my life, what are the principles that I hold dear? And these are of value for me, and I'm not going to let go of those. And so once I've started asking myself these questions, I'm able to take power from above, and it's these questions that will lead me on my journey within, and I'll be able to strengthen my own inner capacity to deal with whatever may come. So 2020 is going to hold challenges, but it's also going to be a time for me to see where I stand. What is it I've chosen to align myself with? And if I've chosen to align myself with that which is pure, that which is uplifting, that which is benevolent, that which is the truth, then yes, I have the power of God supporting me and carrying me further and further in my journey to that destination. And so we have a choice that we need to make. It's still the month of January. It's already been a few weeks of January. But it's still a time to look and see, what do I want to achieve this year? In fact, any time to ask yourself that question is good. But January is traditionally a time when we do look inside to ask ourselves that question. And I know that the people who've come here don't have the answer of, I want to increase my bank balance. I don't think your answer will be, I want to get a bigger home. I don't think your answer will be, I want to get promotion. Yes, all of those are part of life and you'll do whatever you need to do externally. But the reason that brings you here is that you know that there's something more than all of those things. You know that it's your inner being that can be recharged, energized, and refilled through that journey in which you're discovering yourself and also experiencing the relationship with the divine. And surely it is this that will carry you through all the ups and downs that life may bring, especially at this time. What are the things that I'm going to be exposed to? Finances going up and down? Expect prices to rocket? Whether it's Brexit, whether it's climate change, food prices are going to go shooting up. Relationships. Relationships are already under high stress and pressure. Am I right? Fragile. How do I manage those? The work. People often tell me that wherever there have been redundancies, and where 4 people used to do a job, now 2 people are expected to do the same job. Am I right? So these things are going to continue. They're not going to change overnight. All of these things will carry on. there'll be extreme weather conditions. We might not get bushfires, but last year we had more fires. That was a surprise for me. I'd never heard about more fires before. But expect there to be scorching summers, which is fine if you're on holiday for a week or 2 weeks. But when it extends out for a few months, and you see all the fields turning brown, then you begin to wonder what's going on. Well, we were told about it. The scientists have been telling us this for years. We didn't listen, governments didn't listen, and so now we face the consequences, so we're going to be facing all of that. But what can I do? I can make sure that I keep my mind peaceful, I keep my heart loving and open, I keep my intellect very clear so that I can understand what's happening. And most of all, I keep a link with the divine so that I'm able to draw on that and take whatever it is I need as I face all of these challenging situations. And I can do it. Why? Because human beings are guided by their passion. Have you noticed it? The moment you become passionate about something, nothing, no one can stop you. And so, usually our passion is on external things again. But if my passion, my interest now is to be able to create an inner stage of stability, an inner stage of fearlessness, an inner stage in which I'm able to hold on to love and peace and truth. If this is my passion, and yes it is, I'll be able to do it because this is what I want. And until that registers that these are the most important things to be striving for, I'll use my energy in all sorts of other directions. And if I'm content with that, absolutely fine, carry on. But if I find that there's discontent in achieving all those things that I'd wanted to, and I've done all of that, I've got all the things that I want, but there's still a vacuum inside. There's still that empty space which needs to be filled. And that's when I say, well, let me experiment and let me try and see what's going on in here so that then I can fill myself with all of this and prepare myself for whatever the future may bring. I don't know. I don't know where I'll be. I don't know where I'll go. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be challenging. That much I do know. But I can make sure that on the inner level, I have prepared. When you're told winter is coming, the sensible thing would be to make a list of what preparations you need to make. And you have your lagging, make sure that you have a stock of everything that you need, and all of that's in place. Then, when winter does come, then you're ready for it. And so I know there'll be challenges, because this is the way the world is going. Can I be fearless in the face of all of that? I don't know. Well, can I prepare so that at least I have more assurance than I did before? Yes. I can explore and see what is the cause of my fear. What is it that I'm hanging on to that I don't want to lose? Maybe that's a basic cause of my fear. There can be other factors too. But that basic insecurity in which I'm afraid that my attachment is such I might lose something, people, possessions, ideas, I might be shaken. Well, can I deal with that insecurity now so that I'm not dependent on that? The ego of my ideal, the attachment of holding on to possessions or the attachment that's keeping another human being in bondage to me? Can I replace that with love? Firstly, love for the self, the awareness of my own eternal identity as a child of God. As a person, I talk about loving myself, and there's huge ego there. But as a child of God, inside, deep inside, that's who I am, a child of God. Then in that state, I value myself, I respect myself, I love myself, and I don't need to be afraid or insecure. And the power of love can grow, and the power of love can help others go beyond their fears of any loss at all. So I've shared a few thoughts with you, but I know that Brahmji Pai is going to go into it in a little bit more depth and explore things further.
I know you've got some burning questions and I can pick up your vibes. And I want to explore some of the things that you've said, because I've noticed there is a convergence in thinking between science and spirituality. And it's almost like they're speaking the same language, but there's a gap between the information and the actual doing. So how do we bridge that gap from, yes, I understand consciousness, people talk about consciousness. Firstly, what do you mean by consciousness?
I'm talking about the aspect of the self in which I'm exploring my thoughts, my feelings, my awareness, my personality, my memories. All of these things are the things I would say are part of my own inner identity, which is consciousness.
And how can I see that?
It'd be easier if we could, but unfortunately no, because it's not something physical.
Okay.
Memory. Can you catch a memory and weigh it and measure it? Even some physical things you can't measure and weigh. Here are some flowers, and when I'm close to them, I can feel the fragrance. Can you capture that and measure it and weigh it? So, or you say that a flower is beautiful. Now, does it depend on the length of the stem? Does it depend on the diameter of the flower? What does it depend on? So there are aspects that are very real. Fragrance, beauty, go even more subtle. Truth and love. These are things that you can't measure, but they exist as a reality. So consciousness can't be measured and weighed, but it exists, and I can feel it, and I can experience it.
Can I ask you, how do we actually connect with that consciousness?
When my thoughts are connected with all the things out there, I'm not connected. But if I say, I want to think deeply about myself and allow my thoughts to go inside and go deeper and deeper within, sound seems to have gone again. Can you hear me, Indu? Can you hear me, Indu? No. It's I haven't done anything. Hello? Yes, okay. So when I use my thoughts to go inside, I can start feeling that energy that lies not on the skin, but just behind the center part of my forehead, just between the eyes. And so I can feel that energy. And the more I reflect on this, the easier it becomes to connect with this. And at some point, I then begin to say, this is who I am. I am this inner being of light. This is my body, but this isn't I. You know, how much would you know about me just by looking at me? There would be some preconceived ideas about women in white saris and the costume that I wear. And I don't think you'd be able to tell very much about the personality that I am, but going deeper and deeper inside, I know who I truly am as that inner being.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, you're all thinking, I get this, there's this consciousness, there's this being inside. Shall we experiment? Shall we connect with ourselves? Would you like us to lead us into this connection so we can experience our true selves?
I'll speak out my own thoughts and invite you to follow these ideas. So let the body sit comfortably, both feet on the ground, so that the body is balanced. I turn my thoughts inwards and go deeper and deeper within. I can feel this energy that I am. The energy in the center of the forehead. And when I allow my thoughts to become quiet, I can feel the peace that I am. I am a being of light. I am a being of peace. And this is my natural state. I was searching for peace outside, looking around, and I forgot that peace is within. Now I discover the peace that lies within. I hold peace. And as I hold peace, I can feel the light shine more and more brightly. And I can feel the peace radiating out into the atmosphere. Not only am I a being of peace, but I can share this peace with those here in this room, but also beyond. And the collective power of peace generated here reaches far out into the city and beyond. Om Shanti.
I like that. I really did like that. Did you feel the silence, experience? You said earlier on in your talk that up to the age of 7, we're like a sponge, and so we create these habits, and we do live in a world where people worry, people get stressed out, and there's this almost like a default behavior. So how can we shift this consciousness? I mean, you've demonstrated this for a short while, but how can we sort of undo some of the bad things that we've learned?
I'll tell you another thing that Dr. Bruce Lipton said. He said only about 20% of people try to change this autopilot behavior. And so here we've got that 20%. People who are wanting to change this. And so the first is to actually desire to make that difference within myself. So when I have that thought, that passion, I want to change things within, then I'll make the effort. And making that effort means I catch myself, I come back to being here instead of being here. In the response of my physical consciousness, it'll be the autopilot. In the response of my spiritual identity, now I'm in charge of my mind, my thoughts. And so I will choose how to respond to the situation in a different way. And so this is why it's so essential to learn about the inner being and the self that I am, because this will teach me, how do I change my thoughts? Where are my thoughts coming from? Thoughts aren't coming from here, there's something inside of me. 3 people see the same thing, but 3 people have different reactions. So it's not what they saw, it's something that got triggered inside. Am I right? Yeah? So it's me and my response. So if I come back to the awareness of the spiritual being that I am, the being of peace, a being of truth, a being of love, then in that awareness, my response is very different.
Let me get this correct. Now, I follow the news, and I see a lot of demonstrations. I was just thinking about Rebellion Extinction, who are very peaceful, you know, and they were actually quite praised by a chief constable. But is change out there something that we have to do physically, or do we have to really change our own awareness inside if we're going to bring that positive change?
If you follow the path of aggression, and by their own statement, mission statement, what they're trying to do is create civil disobedience, so that then there's going to be upheaval, and through that greater awareness across society. So yes, I was in Madrid when Extinction Rebellion, just in front of the conference hall, because that's where the climate change conference was happening. There's a roundabout, and one day we come out in the afternoon, and it's 100 people. Now it's cold, it's winter, it's December. And these people are dressed in yoga suits, and they're doing yoga exercises in the middle of the road by the roundabout, so that the traffic comes to a grinding halt. Now their determination and their resistance to cold was incredible. All these people doing yoga exercises on the cold on the cold road. You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. And the whole of the traffic got held up, and of course it created a big stir. So how is that going to help me change consciousness of another? It's going to cause a reaction in which I'm going to say, these silly people, they've made me late. I didn't realize that all this was going on. And so what they're doing is inviting a lot of aggression. Instead of support, they're actually creating a lot of reactions. At least that's what happened at that point. Last year in London, when central London in May, everything came to a standstill in many different parts of central London. Again, it was reactions that were happening. So I don't think that you can actually shift things and make things better in this way. I think that if there's a determined change of consciousness and others come on board with that understanding and awareness, things can shift. Now, climate change, and that's what Extinction Rebellion's about, that we've been duped. People haven't told us the truth. The scientists have told us everything, but the governments haven't told us the consequences of everything that's going on. So we need to be aware. We don't want humanity to become extinct. It's powerful. It's very powerful. But how do you shift things? Not through this. I change my lifestyle not only do I change my consciousness, it must be something that's visible in my behavior. I'm going to change the way I live. I'm going to simplify my life. I'm going to go to a plant-based diet on every level. I'm going to do certain things that are going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to maybe turn down the heating a bit. I'm going to maybe not use so much hot water. There's lots of things I personally can do. I'm going to make the right conscious choices when I go shopping. So all those things we can do, and that is going to inspire people around you, and there can be a movement that actually makes change happen. Companies, international companies, if you stop buying their products, they're going to have a think about it. And then don't just look for labels, but actually look at the ingredients and see exactly what it is you are buying. Cruelty to animals, it's a whole big story that's going on now. And so many products that you'd never imagined had animal products in them. It's quite shocking when you look at all of that and discover all this. So it has to be a shift in my own inner state of awareness. Then I'm going to be able to allow the power of peace, the power of love, the power of truth to do its work externally.
Now, what about coming back to sort of more closer to home, relationships? Because it seems like we do live in a world where a lot of the turbulence is created by ourselves, which we don't like to admit, but nevertheless we are accountable to ourselves in terms of feelings. But then there's also the aspect of where there is chaos out there that's beyond our control. In both situations, what do we need to do so that I can restore order in here, the stability that will allow us to bring stability in our relationships, whether it's with our family, with ourselves, or the wider community?
I was just thinking about how we get our priorities a bit mixed up. And there's a very simple formula that I'd like you to carry away with yourselves and apply that formula at all times. First is the subject of the self. Second is the subject of relationships. Third is the subject of task. If I'm paying attention to the self, the inner being, and I'm not talking about being self-centered in the sense of being egoistic, but if I'm paying attention to what's going on the inner level, the inner being, then that attention is going to allow me to tap into my own original core values of peace, of love, of truth, of joy, of purity. And the more I do this, the more powerful I become, the more free I am from fear and instability and insecurity and all these other things that spoil me. And so I want to hold on to my own inner values and experience them and use them in my life, express them in everything I do. And if I'm doing that, then the next step, relationships become much sweeter. If I haven't done that inner work, then relationships become demanding on both sides, because both sides are needy. And this applies both in terms of working relationships, colleagues, also relationships at home with the family, social relationships. I get in touch with you for what I can take from you. I might not put it like that, but essentially, I need your support, I need your company, I need your help, I need your expertise, whatever it may be, but I'm needy. Now, if I've done my first step of homework, I've fulfilled my inner needs. I'm not waiting for you to praise me to feel secure. I'm not waiting for you to support me and help me in whatever it is I'm doing. No, I have my own inner capacity that I've increased through silence, through meditation. I've been able to develop all of that. And as a result of that, now the relationship has changed. The dynamics are now different. I can start giving instead of wanting to take. And so relationships become very, very different as a result of this. And then, because I'm now giving, investing in relationships, it means that when it comes to the task, it's much, much easier. There's cooperation, collaboration, and support from everyone. Otherwise, what happens is that if it's just me, then I'm trying to sort things out on my own, and there's going to be more pressure, more stress, and I'm not going to be able to cope very well. But if I've given time to myself, now I can give investment in a relationship, give to another, and then as a result of that, the task is going to be that much easier through everybody's support and collaboration. And so that is the reality. And so if we get our priorities right, things are much better.
I just want to introduce this new technology that's been brought in where you can charge your phone through Wi-Fi. But I've noticed that all it's doing is just taking power from another phone and depleting that. But the way to really recharge your phone is to connect it to the mains. So I want to bring the aspect of the G word that you mentioned, God. So how does God come into this where, yes, I can do so much on my own, but I do need that connection to the mains as well?
We've had so many different ideas about God that it feels like there's a lot of misinformation around. And so sometimes we dismiss the whole subject, sometimes it's filled with mystical ideas, sometimes it's a mystery, all sorts of things come in. And Raj Yoga explains it very, very simply. I'm a soul, a point of light, a being of light, no measurement, no width, no length, no breadth, no height, but I exist, light, energy. And each one of you is the same, this being of light. God is the supreme being, supreme soul. And so God is also a soul, a point of light. But just as each soul is very different, individual, unique, and so it means that some have greater love, some have greater peace, some have greater power, different things. But God is the supreme because within this being who is God are all positive attributes to their highest extent, to the nth degree. And so we use this term, the ocean of love, the ocean of peace. Love to an unlimited extent, unconditional, non-judgmental. Peace that is unlimited. You can't reach its bottom. It's there, it's fathomless, it's profound. And you can take as much as you want. And so when I connect through my thoughts, remember the example of connecting with the receiver and the transmitter, the connection? So I want to receive. Now I need to tune my mind to the awareness of soul. And in the awareness of this inner identity of the soul, then I can connect to the Supreme Soul. Then from the Supreme Soul, I receive all that I need. So it's not a mystery. It's not something that you just walk into with blind faith. You experiment. First the idea of soul and feel that consciousness that you are, the inner being. And then you reflect on this idea of the one who is supreme, the one who has all attributes, and how that connection is going to draw all those qualities into yourself.
Are you going to lead us? I'm going to request that you take us to the depths of the ocean so we can experience that peace.
Sitting quietly, I focus my thoughts in the center of the forehead and come to the awareness of the inner being. And in this awareness of who I am, I shine. And I connect with my own inner peace. peace as my original nature, this is who I am. And as I become peaceful, I find myself in the presence of the divine, the being of light, the supreme, the one from whom I can draw love. And from the ocean of love, the waves of love touch the soul. And as I fill myself with this love, the sorrow that I have been carrying nursing the hurts and the wounds of the past begin to dissolve. The power of God's love releases the pain. It washes away the sorrow and heals the wounds. And as I feel this process of healing take place, my heart becomes open. And it grows bigger and bigger. And in the presence of the divine and the experience of this pure love, I can forgive. I can let go. And in this place, now there is love. An energy that is pure and healthy. I have been set free to move forward. I fill myself with the power of God's love so that I may be an instrument to share this pure love with my extended, unlimited family. I keep this love and come back to the moment here and now. But I hold this experience of peace and love.
Thank you for that, Sister Jayanti. You've given us a glimpse a connection with ourselves and a connection with the divine. And I know this is a great place to experience that. But what can I do when I'm out in the wider community where I've got responsibilities to family, to myself, to work, and there's absolute chaos everywhere? So how can I experience that on a sort of more continuous basis? Any sort of methods that we can use in our lives?
You know, we always look for shortcuts. But, and this isn't a very long-term thing. It can be quite short, but it's not a shortcut as such. If you want to do anything well, you need to repeat it several times. And so you learn to ride a bicycle. You practice, you ride, and you got it. And then you'll never forget it. Even 10 years later, you'll still be able to ride. But you need to practice it at the beginning. So you develop that skill. Anything, whether it's driving, whether it's computers, whether it's baking a cake, you need to practice. And so when I understand these techniques, these basic ideas of soul and God and meditation and so on, then I need to practice these in my own life. And the best time is the early morning. So it's a time when the rest of the family don't want your attention. And so give yourself time each day before the day begins so that you spend some time going inside and connect with the being who you are. Have this inner dialogue with your own values so that the values get expressed. And through the day, you'll find that you're then able to share on the basis of those things. Going back to the 7-year-old child. Now, if you keep reminding yourself of who you are, how many times a day do you take a glass of water? 4, 6, 8, whatever it is. But every time you have a break, you're hydrating the body. Remind yourself of this. And if you do that, you're connecting with yourself again and again, and the peace, the love and truth will become stronger and stronger in your life. And then, when there's a situation that you have to deal with, this is what will be expressed. If I haven't practiced, then the situation comes and I'm not ready to deal with it. But if I practice, then the situation comes, but my response is now based on my own inner core values. So the secret is practice. And it's not such a big secret. It's something that is very logical and reasonable. But you try this first thing in the morning and make it part of your routine. And even at the end of the day, wind up the day by coming back to that inner stillness. And you'll find that your sleep is far more refreshing than it used to be.
So I've been practicing this for some time now, and I know I've changed. But sometimes you mentioned in your our consciousness, some of our virtues, it's like the iceberg effect. Now I can suppress some of my more bad side of myself, which I'm not proud of. But if you were to stay with me 24/7, you'd probably see that. So how do I conquer those stubborn, you can say, personality traits that brings me into conflict with myself and others?
By reminding myself of who I am and what I really want. And it's that stage of forgetfulness in which I've lost track of who I am, and I'm just again caught up in external form and action, that I disconnect again. And that's when deep things that are hidden inside emerge. But if I stay fully conscious and aware by reminding myself, then that's less and less likely to happen. And that's not a suppression, it's a transformation. Which means now I'm using a new pattern of behavior. Instead of using anger, I'm using love. I'm using peace. Instead of ego, Now I'm using kindness, I'm using compassion, I'm using humility. And so I begin to change those patterns of behavior through my conscious awareness of who I am.
You talked about that it only takes a small minority to make that shift. How can we contribute to that shift? Because as you said, negativity seems to be quite prevalent in today's society and the world, in all walks, in all spheres. But what can we do we can be part of that process of positive change?
A little while ago, I came across a very interesting story, and it's a real story. And the story is about people experimenting in Harvard, and what they did was have 100 people or so in groups, small groups, and they were asked to play this game. 6 people in a group, and they were given a sum of money, and they were told, construct a city. Not paper, it's a game. And here is something there's a community chest, and each one of you, out of the money that you've been allocated, you do everything else that you need to do, but you also contribute to the community chest. And mostly people were contributing 10% of what they had to the community chest. They decided to plant an actor within the whole thing. And they told the actor, don't just put in 10% into the community chest, put in 25%. And the other 5 didn't know, but the actor had been given his instructions, so he put in 25%. Those people saw, and things were better, it was good. And so when they were switching tables, and each of those 6 people went to different tables, so wherever these people went, each one, again, did the same. They'd been inspired, so they put in 25%. And the other people around their table noticed, they were inspired. And so this impact from one to another passed on 3 times. And they calculated that every individual carrying out an act of goodness impacts at least 125 other individuals. Beautiful, isn't it? So there's hope. So if I do one good thing today, it's going to inspire at least 125 people down the line. Well, that's not a little thing. And of course, many of us have greater impact than that. It's not just impacting one other individual or at a time, but it's many individuals that you can inspire. And so I believe in the power of goodness. I believe that where there's goodness, there's also God present. And so not just the impact of human kindness, but also God's power. And I believe that the world is going through a transition. It's not only a time of upheaval, of negativity and positivity. I believe that we are actually moving into another phase. It's not just a ray of hope and light that's entering the world. I believe that just as there comes a moment when the darkness ends because the night is about to finish and the day begins, I believe we're at that cusp. I believe that we're already into the dawn. This is why we are seeing that light, but that light is growing stronger and stronger. So I believe that what's ahead is a world of light. It's time for that to happen. Again, things that you want to make happen out of season won't happen. When the season comes, it'll be easy, it'll be natural. And so I think that we are at this moment, at that transition point. We have God's help, we have our determination, we know of the power of goodness, but it's also the right time. It's time for the world to change and for the day to begin.
I don't know about you, but I definitely want to be part of that change. I want to see that dawn and that new day. So finally, I would request if you can take us into silence, and then afterwards we'll finish this evening's program, and we'll allow Sister Jayanti to leave. She has to go back to London. But for the moment, let's appreciate this moment of silence.
Sitting quietly, I come to the awareness of the light that I am. I shine. I radiate peace. I connect with the Supreme, the Source, the Divine, the Being of Light, the ocean. And from the ocean of peace, peace surrounds the soul, and I absorb this within myself. And the power of peace brings calm, stability, and strength to the soul. Peace is power. And in this awareness of peace, I am powerful. And this power of peace, from the ocean of peace, reaches out into the world. And human hearts are touched by this peace. And they come to that realization of the peace that lies within. And the power of peace not only touches human souls, it touches all forms of life, all the living creatures on our planet. And the power of peace gives them a sense of safety, of protection. And the power of peace reaches out to all the elements of nature. And nature becomes calm and cool. And nature is restored to its original state of purity, cleanliness, rhythm, and beauty. The power of peace chases away the darkness, and light returns to our world. I keep this connection with the divine, and I keep this awareness of my original state of peace. As I come back to the consciousness of the physical dimension, I hold on to this inner awareness of who I am and and the treasures that I carry within myself. Om Shanti.
Sister Jayanti, thank you for coming to Harmony House and sharing your wisdom and experience on the topic. So on behalf of all of you, I'd also like to extend that thank you to you. And I know you have to go back, and we will miss you, and we look forward to when you come back again. So, as a token of your appreciation, one-handed wave to Sister Jayanti is really good.
And also to my brother.
So,